Hey, great. Well, everyone, welcome to our April Bridge Forum. I'm really excited. We have two presenters tonight. We're going to have Devin Ashby from Family Search. He's going to talk about the ways that family history can create resilience and healing. And then we'll have Sam Carlson from BYU talking about a new tool that he's created that I think actually might allow us to involve way more people in source linking. So with that, let me pass the time over to you, Devin.
Well, hey, Joe, thanks so much. My pleasure to be here. Like Joe said, I'm Devin Ashby. I'm from Arizona, but live in Utah now, and I work at Family Search, and I do kind of outreach and marketing for them in Latin America. But this topic today, don't worry, it won't be that. So I'm going to share a little bit about resilience and ways family history can help with that. So let me see if I can get this to share. Can everybody see that okay?
Yeah, that looks great.
Okay, great. So the QR code, if you want a syllabus, it's an article, it's a blog article, it's not very long, but if you want to scan that QR code, that is the link to the syllabus. So the title, Building Resilience, 3 Science-Backed Ways to Find Healing, is the title here. And so we'll just get going. There's my email too if you want to write that down. So resilience, is a pretty interesting thing. If you Google it and you just type in the word resilience, it's pretty interesting to see what kind of auto-populates. There's lots of queries. There's lots of people searching for stuff that has to do with resilience. But basically, it's the capacity or the ability to withstand or recover quickly from difficulties. And we're going to talk a little bit about this. There's patterns in our family history that help us to do that recovery. And generations now, young people today, are growing up in very, very different realities, and many of them digital realities that our ancestors generations ago did not have. And so the ability to recover and bounce back and be resilient is something that's kind of always intrigued me, and my wife and I have taught about it in different ways. So I'm just gonna share a couple thoughts about that tonight. So here's my daughter. She's not looking super resilient right there, right, in a tent, but I share this for a couple of reasons. I grew up outdoors a lot, and I spent many nights in tents. Now, when I was this age, I looked like her and I felt like her, and I didn't like it because it was uncomfortable, it was painful, and sometimes my dad pushed me beyond the limits, and my body felt like it was going to fall apart and break. But here I am, the next generation do the same thing. Why? Because the outdoors is a great place to teach hard things. It's a good, safe place to teach hard things, and it's important to push kids, we believe, my wife and I believe, not beyond their limits and not breaking them, but to push them harder than many times they think they can go. So this is us down outside of Zion's, where we'd recently finished a pretty brutal hike and got back pretty late in the evening, got lost a little bit. But she's in this situation because I was in this situation in the past. That's me in the the dark hoodie with the Phoenix Suns hat, showing my roots in Arizona. But this is us, and one of the difficult hikes that we did down in Grand Canyon called Thunder Mountain is very, very difficult, but very, very rewarding. And one of the things I always knew growing up doing this is how much my dad loved it. And here I am doing the same thing. Again, this ability to bounce back, to push yourselves far, hard, and be able to bounce back from that and realize, you know what, my body did that, and I'm still alive, and my body aches, and but I have some experience as I wouldn't otherwise have had. So just a couple of very brief things we're going to cover in this short class. 3 simple steps. Number 1, start where you are. Number 2, reframe the story. And number 3, connect to others. Now, I want to say at the outset, family history is not a substitute for professional help. There are many, many qualified professionals out there that can help people deal with past trauma and past difficulties and mental health. And family history is definitely not a substitute for that. I do believe, though, in our family generations, we can see patterns that can help us not only be resilient, but help our families and help others to do that as well. So here are the 3 steps. We're going to just talk about each one very briefly. So start where you are. It's hard to start anywhere else, right? Because no one has your story but you. And so many of us have long roads. This one's pretty straight. Many of them curve. Many of them are broken. There's potholes in a lot of them, right? But the first thing to do is to start where you are. There's a great article years ago. Joe and I, Dr. Price and I have talked about this multiple times, but Bruce Feiler kind of packaged up some science and some learnings and wrote about it, some stuff from Emory University, from Dr. Duke and Dr. Fibish. And he wrote this article years ago in the New York Times called The Stories That Bind Us. It's an excellent article. I think you can still access it without having to sign in or subscribe. But it's a great story, again, by Bruce Feiler. We had him out at RootsTech a couple years ago. If you Google Bruce Feiler and RootsTech, you'll see his presentation. He talks a little bit about this. But one of the things I want to share is he talks about a couple of different narratives, again, from Dr. Duke and Dr. Fibish out at Emory University. And he talks about three different ones. First of all, the ascending narrative, right? Hey, maybe a story of an immigrant, right? We came to this country and we had nothing. Our family worked really, really hard. We opened a store. Your grandfather went to high school, your father went to college, and now you. So that's the ascending, right? We started with nothing. The descending narrative is a little different, right? We used to have it all, then we lost everything. The most healthful narrative, Dr. Duke says of the third one, called the oscillating narrative, right? We've had our ups and our downs, which is resilience, and we've been able to get through that. And there's been times when it's been very, very difficult, but what we learned in those difficulties are things that we pattern the rest of our marriage after. I've had a couple of these. My wife and I have had several of these as well. But the ups and the downs is an important part of the family story. And sometimes we only want to tell the good stuff, right? We only want to tell what we might put on social media. And if we only tell that to our kids and the generations, we're not really doing them much of a service. We're just making it sound like we figured everything out and that the rest of life was probably pretty easy because that's how we make it sound. And any parent or any marriage that gets through life and tells their kids that things are all rosy, I don't know what kind of life you've had or marriage you've had, because life can throw a lot of curveballs and a lot of potholes in the road, like we just saw. So again, ascending, descending, and then this oscillating family narrative from this article. So a rubber band, I think, is a good visual, right, for resilience. It can stretch, it can come back. It can stretch even further, it can come back, right? This is a good visual because resilience means we're able to bounce back from difficult things. So step number 2, reframe the story. Sometimes reframing the story is necessary, and there are times when we are telling the story or we're writing down this story. Many times when I share some of these concepts, people are thinking about writing their life histories, they're thinking of compiling different things. And sometimes there's a little bit of reframing that needs to happen. So this may not be new for any of you, but Man's Search for Meaning is a great book from Dr. Frankl, Viktor Frankl. He was a survivor of a concentration camp. And rather than read a whole bunch of stuff from it, I just want to share this one thing that I just really, really love. And he says in this book, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. And of all the things that could be difficult in life, he certainly was no stranger to difficulty. And so there are times when life happens to us, things happen to us, but rather than, complain, or rather than look at that as something difficult, and many times it is, sometimes we have to change ourselves if that situation has been thrust upon us. So there's 2 suggestions, 2 things for reframing the story. Number 1, create a balanced narrative. Again, kind of this oscillating concept of not just things were great, we figured everything out, and boy, your life will be just like ours because we've only told you the good stuff, right? I don't relish when our children are experiencing pain or going through pain, but there's times when pain is really, really good because it's a brutal teacher experience, can be a very, very brutal teacher, as C.S. Lewis once said. So thinking about not just the positive, but telling our kids the hard, communicating some of that and what that was like is really, really important. At RootsTech, I asked a question and I said, RootsTech is a genealogy conference we do in Salt Lake City. I asked what things that people had taught about their family story to their kids. And one man raised his hand and said, the best thing that I've ever taught my kids is when I lost my job and I sat them down and told them how much I was struggling, but how I knew we would be able to get through it. And he was super, super emotional, but he said it was the hardest thing I've ever shared, but I think it was probably the best thing that I ever shared, because they knew what was going on and we were able to walk through that together, and we were able to support each other in ways that we wouldn't have otherwise had I kept that to myself. Number two, look at the big picture and look at the broad picture. So another story, another article from Martha Driesnack. Who are you from? Not where are you from? Who are you from? The importance of family stories. I'm going to pull out just a piece here. Sometimes you are the teller of the story, and sometimes you are the listener. But the key element, as Dr. Driesnack says, is the sharing of positive moments alongside the ability to bounce back from difficult ones. So in your case, you might be a talker, you might be a teller, you might share a lot of stories, which is fine. Sometimes, though, you're the listener, and being able to listen and talk about both positive and difficult is something that's important. So who are we from? We're from our generations in the past, and some of those stories we can tell. And if none of them have been gathered, that's an invitation to each and every one of us to go gather some of those and be able to talk about those. This is an example from my wife. She does a lot of things better than I do. She is at a young age, she's in her 40s like I am. She's decided to start to write her life story, but she's not doing it just in text and not 150 pages. She's trying to do it in stories, very, very simple stories. And so this is just one example of a time in her life when she learned a really important lesson. She walked by a neighbor's house, she stole a rose, she brought it home, she put it in water. Her mom said, "Where'd you get that?" And she said, "I just found it." And then she writes about how awful that felt and how she knew it was wrong. And at 4 years old, it was one of the first times in her life when she felt that burden of having lied and having said something other than what had really happened. But I love this concept because a lot of us think if we write our life story, it has to be text only. But how many young people do you know just want a pile of text from a father or a grandfather or mother, grandfather, grandmother when they're older? A lot of them, I don't know that you need to put your life story on YouTube. However, there are lots of ways to consume stories. There's text, there's audio, there's video, there's lots of different things. We should be able to tell stories better than any other generation because we have the technology that others have not had. So I share this as an example, not telling the entire story, but reframing her story in bite-sized chunks that are a little bit more digestible, I think is a good example. So a quick question for you. What patterns have you seen in your ancestry that you see in yourself? We don't have time to discuss, but maybe some of you can put some of your thoughts in the chat. I think this is a really, really good story, or a good question, sorry, because there should be parts of our ancestry that we see in ourselves. And if we don't know some of those stories, maybe we can go write some of them or talk to those that might be still alive that know some of them. But we've done an exercise as a family, and I said, write 3 words that describe our family. Had all 5 of our kids, my wife and I do it. And out of the 7 of us, 4 mentioned the word adventurous or versions of the word adventure, which made me really excited because that's something I think that is important. And so that might be an exercise you do, but what patterns from your family generations and stories do you see in yourself? This is one of my ancestors, Mary Harrison and Farron, and she was an amazing individual. She left England for religious reasons. She came to the East Coast of the United States, made her way and walked across the United States, and pushed a handcart to follow her religious beliefs, ended up in Utah, ended up in snow, very, very deep snow in Wyoming, had a daughter who during one of the nights when it froze so hard, she went to sleep, and in the morning she could not pull her head up because her braids were frozen into the ground. She lost her husband because of this new faith, had a son that when they arrived in the United States from England was deemed not fit to cross and make this journey. They sent him home and they never saw each other again. So she never remarried, had a very, very difficult experiences in her life, but was resilient and made it through. And I'm a product of her and many others who made very difficult sacrifices. And she is in me. And I'm appreciative to her and all of my ancestors for the things that they've done and the sacrifices they've done. So again, where is your ancestry in you? Okay, last one, and then I'll wrap up. Connecting to others. This is a critical step as well. I'm just going to share a quick story, and then I'll be done. This is a beautiful story from Jorge Bucay, and he tells the story of being a little kid, and he loved to go to the circus, and his favorite thing in the circus were the animals. And this, of all the animals, he loved the elephant. But he noticed when he was a little boy that there was this elephant, and this big, large, powerful animal was chained to a stake that was very, very small. There was a chain around one of his legs going to a little stake. And he remembers thinking as a little boy, that elephant is so big, he could just pull that stake out of the ground. He asked a couple of people, never got a good answer. Didn't think about it till later in life. Years passed, and he talked to other people and mentioned that childhood experience. And one individual that he had talked to had said, well, I think it's because of something that probably happened when he was little. He's probably had that stake chained to his foot ever since he was small. And he thought about this and he thought through it and thought, that's probably true, right? And he started to picture in his mind this little elephant that was chained to a stake when he was very, very small, that at that point was strong enough to hold him. And he could not break away from that. And so later in life, the theory that he had was that the large elephant never leaves because it doesn't believe it can. For years, it's been chained to a stake. For years, it's believed that it couldn't because he tried so hard when he was little and has not been able to do that. So how does that relate to us? If we refuse to connect, we stay at the stake. Now, I'm not talking about connecting maybe online, and I'm not talking about connecting with any random individual or person out there. There are probably some safe spaces for connecting. There are times maybe when the connecting is with the story and ourselves. We write it down, we get it out, and then maybe we destroy it or we burn that story and we try to move on. But it is in the connecting with others or maybe even ourselves that we can move on and figure out how to break those chains. This is our beautiful family. It's my wife and I. These are our children. All of them are boys except 4 of them. And we love them a lot. And we love them enough to tell them hard stories and hopefully help them through hard experiences that they can bounce back from then and be resilient. True story. My youngest son, a couple months ago, said, Dad, I don't like having my own room. The girls always share their own room. I'm always by myself. I always feel alone. And I had a thought, well, let's send you to bed with your ancestors. We created a couple of stories. We summarized them to a very, very short amount for a young attention span. And he's been going to bed with his ancestors now for a couple of weeks. And it's been a great thing. And he asks questions. And those stories are in him. And that's who he is. And this is a way that we've been able to kind of fight this demon for a youngster of loneliness. It's not going to solve everything, but he will know stories about them that he perhaps otherwise would not have known. So again, the 3 steps: building resilience, start where you are, reframe the story, and then connect to others. There's a great experiment out there, 21-day family connection experiment. You can Google this. There's a section here that has, there's an evidence section where we've gathered a lot of different resources, a lot of different articles here where you can find more information. There's an experiment where you can do a couple of different activities by yourself, with your family, with friends, and you can connect to your ancestors a little bit better. This is what the article looks like on that QR code at Family Search. It goes through some of the things that we've discussed. So that's the presentation. Hopefully that was helpful, and don't forget to be resilient. Thanks,
Great.
Joe.
Thanks, Devin. So we have some time for questions. So raise your hand if you want to ask a question, or you can drop it in the chat. Go ahead, Donna.
Yeah, Devin, that was awesome. Can you put that QR code back up there? I'm not as fast as you with my phone.
Sure thing. Let me do that.
Or you can even
Thank,
also, and in addition to that, maybe put the link in the chat, then everyone can access it.
Let me do
oh,
that. That might
okay.
be easier.
Oh, great. Thank you so much.
Other questions for Devin? So Devin, one question I was going to ask is, I love this idea of family reminiscing. Have you found some good prompts that get that kind of reminiscing going when you're gathered with either your kids or your siblings?
Yes, I have. Great question. I'm going to put another link in the chat. It's another article. And sometimes prompts are the ways to get the stories moving and going. From this research, I didn't talk a lot about this, but there's the Do You Know scale, and there's 21 different questions that Dr. Duke and Dr. Fives used with these children that they were testing to figure out this intergenerational self and this resilience. And there's 21 of those, and there's simple things like, do you know where your parents met? Do you know where they grew up? Do you know something from the life of your grandpa, something difficult he went through, things like that. I'll put that chat in, or that link in the chat as well.
Cool. And then Chris Keller had a question. How do you structure the family storytelling time?
How do you structure it?
Yeah.
That's a great question. I honestly, I think a lot of it, there might be things that adults think are fun, and there might be, deep things. My mind always goes to how would I turn this into an activity? How would I turn a story into an activity? So I mentioned this super briefly, but write down 3 words that describe our family. I'm not saying this is the best thing to do, but for younger audiences, it's great. And then you say, why did you choose those words? Um, Dr. Fivish and Duke and others have written a lot about family narrative. Bruce Feiler writes about this as well. We've actually taken words that we've done in this exercise that our kids have kind of written about. And then we've tried to pull that together. And over years of kind of building this family narrative of this mission statement, it's in our walls on our house too. We've realized that in our family, we believe in 2 things. We believe in people and experiences, and we believe that there's endless supplies of both. And there's always more people to meet. There's always more experiences to have, and we want to invest and focus our efforts there. So I don't know if that's a great question, or a great response to that, but I would try to form questions and then maybe do 3x5 cards and have people write what they feel, and just realize young people, they actually do have a lot to share. I wouldn't make it long, I'd make it short, and then I just get them to talk about it.
Cool. Well, Devin, we're going to shift over to Sam. We'll still have some questions at the end. Though I have a request for you, Devin. Can you find that IKEA commercial? Can you post a link
Sure.
to that in the
Yeah,
chat?
yeah.
Because I also think that would be a great thing for people to take home with them.
That's a great one. I'll find that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Well, with that, let's switch over to Sam Carlson. So Sam Carlson's a student here at BYU, works in the record linking lab, and he's going to show a really amazing tool that him and Zarin Losley have created. So go ahead. I'll pass it over to you, Sam.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Dr. Price. Yeah, so my name is Sam Carlson. Like Dr. Price said, I work in the lab there at BYU. And this is a project that I've been working on with Zarin Loosely. We're both developers on this. So yeah, without further ado, our vision with this project, PowerLinker Lite, is to make a quick and accessible way to link Social Security records, also known as Numadent records, to people in the family tree. And so to date, PowerLinker Lite users have performed nearly 30,000 reviews on more than 18,000 of these records. And actually, those numbers are a little outdated since we've been kind of hitting it a little harder lately. And so this is just a video demo, but we'll get to the live demo in just a second. At its core, what this app is it's just a way to attach hints en masse. We're trying to turn it into a really efficient, scalable process. So when you first open it up, I don't know if any of you guys have used SourceLinker, probably. It looks somewhat similar to SourceLinker, but it's very simplified. All information is visible by default. We've got some highlights in there. So you see that green in there. That's pieces of information that we've verified algorithmically are, you know, probably a match. And then if you check out at the bottom, there's this attach all and not a match button. You'll notice we don't allow you to cherry pick which ones do match and don't match. That's because the social security records, we can really trust them. You're not really going to come across a situation where, you know, it applies to one piece but not the other. We're just talking about the focus person and the father and mother. And so you're just attaching them all or choosing not to attach them all at once. We've taken some measurements, actually, Dr. Price has, and we found that people can do about 9 hints per minute. Some people can do way more than that. Super impressive. But we're not sacrificing reliability for speed here. We have at least 2 people review every single hint. And then if both of those people agree that that hint should be attached to the tree, only then do we say, okay, this record is good. We're gonna attach it to these, you know, this person and their parents on the tree. So yeah. And then in the coming months, there are going to be some new features coming to PowerLinker Lite. So this currently deployed version. One of those is red highlighting. So just like the green highlighting, just for pieces of information that don't match. And then we've also reworked the backend so that it prioritizes hints that are closer to being added to the tree, ones that have been already reviewed. But the existence of a PowerLinker Lite implies the existence of just a regular PowerLinker. This one is not out yet. It's something we'll be working on over the summer. But the vision for PowerLinker is that you'll be able to have a lot of the features from PowerLinker Lite, a lot of the streamlined just things, you know, the highlighting, you know, aspects of the attach all button. But it'll work with any record. And on top of that, the goal is to make it very customizable. And so you could even like turn on and off highlighting, for instance, or maybe move around elements on the screen to suit your tastes. And then of course, because we'll be dealing with more complex hints, we're going to have a more upgraded voting system, you know, something a little bit more robust. So without further ado, we'll do the live demo now. This is the link. It's just powerlinkerlite.rll.byu.edu. I'll come back to the screen so that you guys can visit it. We'll just hop over here. Takes a little bit to load, but once it's loaded, it goes. And so you can see up here, we've got the batch name. We've got a person's record. On the left side is the record that we're attaching, and on the right side is what's already on the tree. As we can see here, the parents match very closely. You know, middle names are abbreviated. The dates are also very close. Are they exact? In this case, they're exact. Sometimes it's still green highlighted when the dates are a little different. That's by design. You know, if they're close enough, we consider that to be essentially the same. And so the only thing that's not highlighted is this person's name. And that's because the last name and the middle name are a little bit different, actually. And so in this case, this is
Sam, I
probably,
think on the right, someone's put her married name.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was gonna say, in this case, we should probably attach it because it's a maiden name to a married name. And then that's how it goes, you know. You just keep you know, you hit attach all or not a match. Majority of the hints you'll come across here are going to be they're going to be matches, just by virtue of this. And these are pretty easy to match up already, you know, with the hint. But occasionally you'll come across something that looks really you know, questionable, and in that case you'd hit not match. So yeah, I think that's about everything I have to say. You guys got any questions for me?
Hey, yeah. So any questions for Sam? You can also try it out really quick. I put the link in the chat. So maybe you might try it
Yes.
out and then you can, I mean, Sam's the one that built it. So the nice thing is you can live demo, you can live try it and then just ask Sam any of your questions. So Sam, what were kind of the needs you were trying to meet with this thing?
The goal here is, I see it addressing a couple of issues. One is that it can be a little difficult just to hop into SourceLinker cold. And this is a really good way to kind of get that concept down in a little bit of a more streamlined environment. And of course, the other goal is to really accelerate the pace at which we can get these Numinent records attached because they're really easy hints. You're just looking at the person and their parents. And if you were to do these in SourceLinker, you'd still have to, click each one. Whereas here you can just like hit a single button and look at it. You see the highlighting, you spend a little more time just to verify information and you can get them done just a lot faster. Um, so I see those as being the main goals of this application.
Sweet. I think you got a few questions. So Karen, go ahead. You can go first and then Sean, and then I'll read Mike and Debbie's question. Go ahead, Karen.
Okay. I was wondering on that program, when you hit either attach all or not a match, will it then take you to the next hint? Does it just keep moving along?
Yes, it does. It moves you right to the next hint right away.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, two questions. One, is the goal to connect all Social Security death index to people?
Yeah.
And how many people do you have working on it right now?
I'm not sure actually. Dr. Price would have a better idea of that.
Oh, well, this is just one part of the Numinent project we have. We probably have, I bet we have at least 700, 800 people kind of helping out in different ways. It's kind of
Wow.
spread out across our tools, but the Numinent includes 150 million people. So I think it's the record collection that's going to do more to help people find their family than probably anything we have except for the census.
Okay.
Let's see. And then Sam, one question Mike and Debbie Osler had is, what happens to hints when you hit not a match? Does it come up again for someone else?
It depends on how many times it's been viewed. So it will come up again if it's the first time it's being viewed. Right now, every hint only gets reviewed twice. But it won't be attached to the tree unless two people have said that it should be attached. And so we are keeping track of which hints, what pattern of approval we get there, and we've got a plan for how to handle those and things, but yeah, it's got to be unanimous.
When you got Shelly said, just tried it, super cool. And then Tim Ed says, is there a provision for adding extra information that appears on the Numinent record that is not on the tree? Oh, for adding the extra information.
Adding the extra,
That's so I guess that's after Sam. I guess that's after your part. So Sam handles the tool, and then once I get the information, then right now we just attach it to the tree. But because that record's attached, people could add in the extra information. So some of the ones you saw Sam did like there was a birthplace like Puerto Rico, but right now this is mostly about attaching. Yeah, so like here it says, what if there's a full middle name on the Numinent record, but only initial on the tree? So for right now, we're just attaching, but our hope is to use the information from the Numinent to put in maiden names, death dates, middle names, all that other stuff. So then Paul's saying the not a match terminology could be confusing with SourceLinker concept of not a match, maybe skip. Yeah, that's a Sim. So that's some good feedback from Paul Quinn about the skip is actually probably a better way to think of it. Yeah, that's actually, Paul, that's a great thing.
Yeah.
And then it says, Christy says, that's the part that's making me itchy, attaching without adding the information. Yeah, so Christy, we do have, I can share more about that with you. We do have some ways, we do have some plans in place to use automation to get a lot of the information from the Numinent over. I think our biggest goal right now is just to make sure everyone in the Numinent is accounted for on the tree. We just don't want anyone to get missed. So that's where this is going. Sam, any final things you want to share with this group?
No, I think that's about it.
Okay, actually, let me ask one final question. What's been like the biggest challenge in creating a tool like this?
Yeah. The biggest challenge in creating a tool like this, um, well, I think one of the interesting things, technical things we came across, me and Zarin, was that we wanted the hints to load faster. Actually, I think you came to us and like, okay, like there's like a loading screen every time you attach or don't attach, you know. And so we had to figure out how to kind of preload hints so that that's why it takes a little bit to load at the beginning, but then it's really fast after that. Um, we had to figure out a way to preload about 10 hints into the future and then just keep pulling from that and then keep calling down more hints as it goes. Um, that was a really fun technical problem to tackle as we did that.
Cool, yeah. And so it sounds like a lot of the comments are not about the tool, but about getting the information from the record over to the tree. And
Mhm.
a lot of so that's kind of a lot of that is happening in negotiation with Family Search about like what parts can be automated. But the really cool thing is the Numinent does have so much rich information about
Mhm.
people. Well, thank you so much, Tim. If you want to stop share, we're gonna kind of close, and I'm gonna stop the video, and then I'm gonna just share one thing just with this group. You're gonna get to see a new tool we built. This new tool cannot handle. We can't have too many people using it right away, so that's why it's going to be kind of a limited release here in the beginning. But just to kind of close off the recording, Devin, thank you so much for what you shared. I was really lucky. I have my Uncle Sean here with me, and I actually have memories of sitting at my grandpa's house after he passed away and having all my aunts and uncles reminisce and tell some really, really funny stories. And so like as a kind of a participant watching my aunts and uncles do that, that was it made me realize how powerful that family sharing can be. And then Sam, thank you so much for building that tool. I think one thing we didn't emphasize is this tool can be used to help people practice doing family history. So like and the other nice thing is you don't have to log in. So whenever you work with youth groups, there's always this challenge with getting them logged in. This is just, you can get them within, 5 seconds. You can get them doing something like SourceLinker. And what I love about it is you're teaching them how to compare things like, hey, is this name similar? Is this date similar? Is this place similar? So with that, we're going to close our bridge forum for tonight. We're going to have one more bridge forum in May, and then we'll start up back again in September.